It started with a text, short, cold, and perfectly timed. 4:43 p.m. Thursday. Family meeting tonight. 8:00 p.m. Everyone must come. This is urgent. Dad. I stared at the glowing screen, a bitter smile forming on my lips. Urgent. What an interesting word coming from them. It had been 14 months since my wedding, 14 months since the invitations were sent, since my phone buzzed with polite excuses, and since every member of my family decided I wasn't worth showing up for. My sister, Rachel, had texted, "Sorry, can't make it. Backyard weddings aren't really our thing." My brother, Marcus, had been even blunter. Not worth the drive for such a basic ceremony. Mom sent a short, sweetly cruel email. "A casual outdoor wedding just doesn't reflect our family's standards. I hope you understand." And my father? He didn't respond at all. That day, under the sunset glow, I'd said I do in front of 50 guests, friends, colleagues, neighbors, people who chose to be there. We'd stood beneath white roses and golden string lights draped between oak trees. It was beautiful. It was mine, and not one blood relative was there to see it. Now, 14 months later, suddenly there was something urgent. I already knew why. That morning, the Lifestyle Channel had aired an episode of Most Spectacular Estates, and guess whose home had opened the show? Mine. They showed every restored room, every hand-carved doorframe, every shining inch of my 12-acre lakefront estate. They revealed its $5.5 million value, interviewed me about how I'd purchased it as a distressed property for $1.8 million 3 years earlier, and even played footage of my wedding, yes, the backyard one, in those same gardens. The segment went viral. By noon, I'd gotten more messages than I had in the last 3 years combined. Old friends, distant cousins, even ex-classmates suddenly so proud, and of course, my family. So I replied simply, "I'll be there." At 7:58 p.m., I turned into my parents' driveway, headlights cutting across their manicured hedges. The garage looked like a luxury car dealership, Rachel's Mercedes, Marcus's BMW, even Aunt Linda's Lexus. Funny how urgent family meetings suddenly attracted full attendance when money was involved. I stepped out in heels that clicked sharply against the stone path. Leather briefcase in hand. Mom opened the door before I could knock, her voice wrapped in honey and guilt. "Victoria, you're here. Everyone's waiting." The living room was already full. Mom, Dad, Rachel, and her husband Brad, Marcus and his fiancée Jennifer, Aunt Linda, Uncle George, Cousin Stephanie, all sitting in a perfect semicircle like a tribunal. Aunt Linda beamed. "There she is, our TV star. That estate of yours is just breathtaking, dear." I didn't smile. "That's interesting," I said softly. "Last year you told me I'd wasted my savings on a crumbling house in the middle of nowhere." Her grin faltered. Dad's voice cut through the tension. "Sit down, Victoria. We need to talk." "I'll stand," I said, setting my briefcase on the coffee table. "Your text said this was urgent. Let's hear it." Marcus leaned forward, fake charm dripping from his voice. "We saw the show. The place looks amazing." "Thank you," I replied flatly. Dad cleared his throat. $5.5 million, he repeated slowly. That's quite an investment for someone who was supposedly living beyond her means. The words hit me like déjà vu, the same tone he'd used 2 months before my wedding when he'd lectured me about financial irresponsibility. Mom's voice turned soft, worried, manipulative. "Honey, we just want to be sure you're not in over your head. Surely you took out a massive mortgage. That kind of property would crush anyone your age." "Why would you assume I have debt?" Uncle George snorted. "Because nobody in their 20s owns an estate like that outright. You must be leveraged to the hilt. That's why you had that little wedding, isn't it? Tight budget?" I almost laughed. "Is that what you think?" Rachel's tone turned falsely kind. "We're not judging, Vic. We just want to help. Brad thinks you should sell before the market turns." Brad nodded eagerly. "I've got a great agent, actually. We could list next week and—" I lifted a hand, cutting him off. Then slowly I opened my briefcase. The sound of the metal clasp echoed through the silent room. "Before we continue," I said, voice calm, "let me ask something simple. Why didn't any of you come to my wedding?" No one spoke. Not one person dared meet my eyes. I sent invitations 6 months in advance, I continued. Called each of you personally. Every single one of you made an excuse about why my wedding wasn't worth attending. That's not fair, Rachel said quickly. We explained it wasn't special enough. You said it wasn't a real celebration, that it was too basic. I looked at each of them in turn. So tell me, what changed between then and now? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. We didn't know what? I snapped. That the rented cottage was actually my estate? That the basic backyard wedding was in gardens now featured in 3 national magazines? You never told us, Rachel said defensively. I invited you to see it multiple times. Mom said she was too busy. You said it was too far to drive. Marcus didn't even return my call. Dad's jaw tightened. We're not here to discuss the past. This is about your financial situation. My financial situation? I echoed. Then I placed a document on the table. Crisp, heavy paper. That's the deed. The estate is fully paid off. No mortgage. Uncle George grabbed it, scanning quickly. His face paled. Free and clear? You actually own it outright? Yes. I laid down another sheet, an appraisal from last month. It's now worth $6.2 million. The show increased the value by $700,000 overnight. Dad's hand trembled slightly. How did you afford this? I worked for it. I pulled out more documents. Clean, precise. This is my company, North Star Property Development. We restore historic estates and manage luxury properties. Marcus leaned over. This says your company's worth $23 million, 24.7 as of this quarter. The silence that followed was thick and perfect. My so-called basic wedding? I said quietly. It cost $180,000. The flowers alone were $15,000. The catering, a Michelin-starred chef. The music, a string quartet from Carnegie Hall. Rachel's mouth fell open. But you said it was casual. Casual meant intimate, I replied. 50 guests, no pretentious ballroom. Not cheap. Not basic, Mom's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell us? I did, I said evenly. You just didn't listen. I told you I was restoring a historic estate. You called it an old dump. I said I was starting a business. Dad said I was playing entrepreneur. I invited you to my wedding. You said it wasn't special enough. I unlocked my phone and held up a photo. Me in my Vera Wang gown, Daniel's hand around my waist, sunlight spilling through the oak trees. White roses. Gold light, Aunt Linda gasped. That's your wedding? The basic ceremony you all skipped, I said. I swiped again. Chandeliers, a 7-tier cake, a vintage Rolls Royce parked by the lake. I didn't hide anything. You just couldn't see past your own arrogance. Dad's voice softened. If we had known, I laughed, a short, sharp sound. That's exactly the problem. You'd have come if you knew it was expensive enough, not because it mattered to me. Mom looked hurt. That's not true. Oh, it's true, I said coldly. Remember Marcus's engagement party? Cheap conference room in Hampton Inn? Grocery store cake? I flew in from Seattle, brought a $500 gift, and stayed till the end. Marcus flushed. That's different. How? I demanded. Because that was your engagement? While mine didn't deserve 2 hours of your time? Rachel stood flustered. This isn't fair. For what? I asked sharply. For skipping my wedding? For acting superior? You should feel guilty. She shook her head. We didn't know you were successful. And that's my point, I said, my voice rising. I'm your sister. You should support me because you love me, not because you saw me on television. Silence again. The kind that feels like glass about to shatter. Finally, I exhaled and reached back into my briefcase. You want numbers? Fine. I laid out deeds like playing cards. Riverside property, $3.8 million. Willow Creek Manor, 2.1. Hartley Building, 4.2. Riverside Inn, 1.9. Their eyes widened. I kept going. Garden District properties, 6.7. Lakefront cottages, 2.3. Victorian Mansion, 3.4. Uncle George was whispering, trying to add them up. That's over 25. No, almost 29 million. I set down the last document, my portfolio statement. Total assets, $52.3 million. Net worth, $44.2 million. Jennifer's voice came out in a stunned whisper. 44 million? Yes, I said simply. And personally, I'm worth about 31. I glanced at my father. Not bad for someone who was playing entrepreneur, right, Dad? He looked like I'd punched him. I continued, tone calm, almost bored. Next month, I'll be featured on the cover of Forbes, Young Entrepreneurs in Historic Preservation. I snapped my briefcase shut. So why am I here? No one answered. You saw me on TV, I said quietly. You realized I wasn't the failure you assumed. And now you want in. That's not true, Mom started. Don't lie. My voice was ice. Dad, what's the real reason? He deflated, shoulders sagging. The business is struggling. We need investors. When we saw the show, we thought maybe, how much? I asked flatly. Uncle George answered before Dad could. $500,000 for dealership expansion. And you thought I'd just write a check? Rachel leaned forward, eyes pleading. We made a mistake. We're sorry, but we're family. Family helps each other. I stared at her for a long moment. Her words sounded sincere, but sincerity after fame wasn't the same as sincerity when you're invisible. Do you know what Daniel and I did on our wedding night? I said quietly. We walked through those gardens at midnight, and he held me while I cried, because my family couldn't show up for the most important day of my life. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Daniel's family was there, I said softly. All of them, from 6 different states. His 87-year-old grandmother came with her walker, because that's what family does. I picked up my briefcase. You want to know what else? They didn't ask how much it cost. They didn't analyze if it was special enough. They just showed up. Victoria, please. Dad stood. The $500,000 you need. That's less than I spent on my wedding. The wedding you skipped. I let it sink in. I could write that check right now. Hope flared in their eyes. But I won't. Hope died, because you don't help family. You help family when it's convenient, when it benefits you. I opened the door. I learned that 14 months ago at my reception, staring at the empty table where you were supposed to be. Please. Mom's voice broke. We're sorry. You're sorry now, but not when you RSVP'd now. Not when I called Mom crying the night before. Not for 14 months of silence. I pulled up a photo on my phone and placed it on the table. The empty table for my wedding. 8 empty chairs. A card-writing family untouched play settings. I set this up with Hope. Hope you'd surprise me. Daniel wanted to remove it so I wouldn't be hurt, but I insisted. Mom cried openly now. Every guest saw that empty table. Do you know how humiliating that was? I picked up my phone, but Daniel's family moved over to sit in those empty chairs. By night's end, that table was full of people who chose to love me. That's beautiful, Stephanie whispered. It taught me something. Family isn't blood. It's showing up when it matters. Victoria. Dad's voice was desperate. The business will fail. Is that what you want? He stopped at the door. You know what he wanted. My family at my wedding. Mom helping pick my dress. Dad walking me down the aisle. Rachel as maid of honor. Marcus giving an embarrassing toast. I looked back. I wanted what Daniel's family gave without question, some know. I don't want the business to fail. But I won't be the ATM your member only when you need money. It's not like that. If that show never aired, would we be having this conversation? Silence. That's what I thought. I left as chaos erupted behind me. My phone buzzed. Daniel, how did it go? Exactly as expected. Coming home. Making your favorite dinner. I love you. I love you too. As I drove away, text flooded in. Rachel, please reconsider. Marcus, can we talk? Mom, you're breaking my heart. Dad, money has made you cruel. I typed back to Dad. No, money just made you notice me. That's not the same thing. Then I blocked them all and drove to my estate. My beautiful paid-off $6.2 million estate with memories of a perfect wedding. Daniel stood on the front steps, backlit by warm light. How was it? He asked. Educational. He hugged me. I'm proud of you for knowing your worth. Inside smelled like home and fresh flowers. Our dog Maisie bounded over. Wedding photos covered the walls, showing the truth about that magical day. One final text came from an unknown number. Victoria, this is Aunt Linda. Some of us really do want to make amends. Not for money, just because we miss you. I saved her number. Prove it. Show up. Not because of what I have, but who I am. When's your next Sunday dinner? This Sunday, 6 p.m., come alone. I'll be there. That Sunday, Aunt Linda came with flowers and homemade pie. No money requests, just real conversation and genuine apologies. It was a start. The rest, I haven't spoken to them since. My company just closed a $12 million hotel renovation. Forbes published a feature. Daniel and I are celebrating our 2nd anniversary in Italy, and I haven't missed them once because I learned from that empty wedding table. The people who show up when it doesn't benefit them. Those are your real family. Everyone else is just related by blood. And blood is thinner than I.